Y'all know about slavery, right? That dark time when our people were stolen from Africa, treated like property, bought and sold like cattle? It was a brutal system that dehumanized us, stripped us of our culture, our language, our families. We were forced to work from sunup to sundown with no rights, no freedom, no hope. Slavery was the backbone of the Southern economy, and the South fought tooth and nail to keep it that way. But then came the Civil War, a bloody conflict that tore the nation apart. The North fighting to preserve the Union and the South fighting to maintain their way of life, which included the institution of slavery. When the Civil War ended in 1865, it was supposed to be a new beginning. The Emancipation Proclamation had declared all slaves in Confederate territory free, and the 13th Amendment abolished slavery throughout the United States. But freedom, real freedom, was still a long way off. The South, they didn't give up easy. They found new ways to keep us down, to control us, to keep their boots on our necks. They passed black codes, laws designed to restrict the freedom of black people and ensure their availability as a cheap labor force. These laws varied from state to state, but they all had the same goal: to maintain the racial hierarchy that had existed under slavery. That's where Jim Crow comes in. Jim Crow wasn't just a set of laws, it was a way of life. It was a system of racial segregation and discrimination that permeated every aspect of society. It was about keeping black folks in their place, about maintaining white supremacy. After the Civil War, there was a brief moment, a glimmer of hope, called Reconstruction. During this time, the federal government took steps to protect the rights of newly freed black people. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States. And the 15th Amendment guaranteed the right to vote regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Black folks were voting, getting elected to office, even going to Congress. It was a time of great progress and possibility. For the first time, black people had a voice in the political process. They were able to advocate for their rights and work towards a more just and equitable society. But the South, they hated it. They couldn't stand to see black folks rising up. They saw Reconstruction as an affront to their way of life, and they fought back with everything they had. They used violence, intimidation, and fraud to suppress the black vote and regain control of their state governments. So they started passing these laws, these Jim Crow laws, named after a minstrel show character that made fun of black people. These laws were designed to enforce racial segregation and disenfranchise black people. They were a way to roll back the gains of Reconstruction and reassert white dominance. These laws, they were all about segregation, about keeping black folks separate and unequal. They mandated separate schools, separate parks, separate restrooms, separate everything. They created a world where black people were treated as second-class citizens, where they were denied the basic rights and opportunities that white people took for granted. They said we couldn't use the same schools, parks, restrooms, or even drink from the same water fountains as white folks. They said we couldn't sit in the same sections of theaters, restaurants, or buses. They said we couldn't marry white people, couldn't live in white neighborhoods, couldn't work in certain jobs. Imagine that, being told where you can and can't sit on a bus, where you can and can't get a drink of water, all because of the color of your skin. Imagine living in a world where every aspect of your life is dictated by laws designed to keep you down, to keep you in your place. That's the world our ancestors lived in, the world they fought to change. And their struggle, their resilience, their determination is a testament to the strength and spirit of our people. Now, these laws might have said separate but equal, but we all knew the truth. Nothing about it was equal. The schools for black children, they were run down, overcrowded, with barely any books or supplies. Our teachers, they were dedicated, but they didn't have the resources to give us the same quality of education as white children. And don't even get me started on the economic injustice. Black folks were stuck in low-paying jobs, sharecropping, domestic work. The good jobs, the ones with decent pay and a chance to move up, those were reserved for white folks. Jim Crow wasn't just about segregation, it was about keeping black folks economically dependent, trapped in a cycle of poverty. And then there was the violence, the constant fear. Lynchings were common, a way to terrorize and control black people. The Ku Klux Klan, they were like the enforcers of Jim Crow, using violence and intimidation to keep us in our place. It was a time of fear, a time when black folks had to be careful about every word they said, every step they took, just to survive. Now, some folks might say, that was a long time ago. Why are we still talking about Jim Crow? But here's the thing, the legacy of Jim Crow. It didn't just disappear overnight. The laws might be gone, but the scars they left on our society, they run deep. We still see it today in the disparities in wealth, in education, and healthcare. We see it in the mass incarceration of Black and brown people, in the school-to-prison pipeline. We see it in the way Black communities are still struggling with poverty, with lack of opportunities, with the effects of redlining and systemic racism. Jim Crow might be gone, but its ghost still haunts us. It's up to all of us to learn from the past, to acknowledge the injustices that were done, and to fight for a future where everyone, regardless of the color of their skin, has an equal chance to thrive. We can't change the past, but we can damn sure fight like hell to create a better future. A future where the echoes of Jim Crow are finally silenced, replaced by the sweet sounds of justice and equality.